all, and welcome back to Maps and Graps. As always, I am your host, Lyric Swinton. Super excited to be back. I have not been able to podcast like the actual regular show as frequently over the past month because, as you know, I've been doing my Black History Month interview series, which you can check out on my YouTube right now, with interviews from Athena, Kevin Knight, Maya World, and Fred Rosser. Thank you for everybody who's been supporting that. But we're back with the New Japan coverage. There's a lot going on in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Not all of it is good. And especially, this kind of feels a little bit sad after, the New Beginning Osaka was so great. And so I just, there's been a lot happening. But I'm joined by a very special guest. Ben is here. You might know him as @Graps on Taps on Twitter. Good friend of mine. We got to meet up at All In. Lots to talk about as it relates to the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. How are you today, Ben?
I'm really, really great, actually. Thank you very much for inviting me on. And it's kind of a hybrid of excited to discuss a bit of wrestling with you, but also, the state of New Japan at the minute is quite an interesting topic, especially after the New Beginning shows in Sapporo. So, kind of a half dreading discussing it, but also really excited. So thanks very much for having me on.
Yeah, and we're going to do a bit of a sandwich. So let's do the bad news first, which is the Sapporo review. And we're going to end off on a high note, which is some early predictions for the New Japan Cup, because I think that this is going to be a new beginning, for better or for worse. Mm-hmm. And there's some very interesting matchups in this tournament. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The day one of the New Beginning in Sapporo show. So we had Okada's last match happened. His second to last match.
Yeah, second to last match, yeah.
So it was a 10-man tag. Okada, Ishii, Yoshihashi, Hiroki Goto, and Yo versus the United Empire, Jeff Cobb, Great-O-Khan, Hanare. Wait, Hanare got dropped. Yeah, I think Hanare got subbed out because he wasn't cleared. And so he was replaced with
Callum Newman.
Yeah. And then we had Akira. Oh, wait, that's Callum Newman. Callum Newman was over there. Or did was that a 4-on-4?
It was Callum Newman, Akira, Great-O-Khan, and Jeff Cobb.
Yes. Okay. So I think they ended up making it an 8-man tag. So that's essentially what happened. I will say this was pretty anticlimactic. I don't think anticlimactic is what people exactly wanted for Okada's second to last match in New Japan. It wasn't the worst match on the card. It wasn't the best match on the card. It just was a match. It happened.
I think it's difficult. I mean, obviously it's sad seeing Okada leaving, and I think lots of people did expect him to have these kind of big send-offs. I think lots of us hoped for like a really big singles match to send him off, and he had the Tanahashi match, which might have been the kind of perfect ending, I think.
Yes.
And instead, we got a couple matches on the Sapporo shows, and this one, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Really, bit anticlimactic, and there was a bit of fun. He showed his more goofy side, sort of messing around with Yoshihashi, which was kind of nice to see. I thought it was really funny that he did the whole UV light entrance that he had at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting choice to sort of repeat that after Wrestle Kingdom.
To do it for a tag match like that?
To stop his entrance music and then have this whole thing while the crowd kind of sits on their hands like what was interesting. And in this match, but also the match on the second show, he had this weird dynamic with Great-O-Khan happening kind of throughout.
I think Great-O-Khan had a weird dynamic happening with Okada because Okada pretended he did this.
He was completely blanking him, and it was almost like Great-O-Khan was trying to will into existence a singles match
for the KOPW championship.
Yeah, so which I'm almost 100% certain is never going to happen. So I might eat my words, but I doubt it on that one.
No.
But yeah, certainly not, like you said, not the worst match on the card, but certainly not the best either.
Yeah. I will say I feel like Callum Newman looked really good in this match.
Yeah.
I feel like what I do appreciate is I think that the younger guys who have been able to get a shot at Okada in this, this abrupt final run, they've really been trying to take it to him as much as possible. Kosei Fujita comes to mind, like that 6-man tag, that trios match, TMDK versus, the Dream Team. I think I'm going to always remember that. Like Fujita's performance was excellent.
Oh, yeah.
So Newman was nowhere near this, but like obviously he did the best with the time that he was given. And so I think that he's a person that I will say I wasn't originally super sold on.
No, I agree.
I wasn't originally super sold on. I thought like Ospreay, I'm typically all in on the guys that Ospreay brought in from the UK, but I was just like, okay, I don't really see it. But I felt when he had that singles match in Korakuen versus Ishii, I was like, oh. And you know what, though? Just as a brief side note, but I think that all of the New Japan young guys, I think that they need to, before we see which title they're going to challenge for, I think they need to go through the Ishii test, because I think that Ishii is truly the test in New Japan of if you have what it takes or not. And if you can have a good singles match with Tomohiro Ishii, I believe that you have the best potential. And so Callum Newman had a great match with Tomohiro Ishii. And I think that we need to get Tsuji, Umino, all these guys. They need to see it. We need to see if they can pass the Ishii test.
Yeah, I think I think the other side of that is, and then Ospreay very much has the same effect where him and Ishii, I think they struggle to have a bad match. So sometimes it can also hide their opponent's sort of weaknesses. But I totally agree. I mean, I think we might discuss this later, but having sort of stronger veterans who are sort of upper mid card and are acting as gatekeepers of that kind of level, like Ishii, and having these younger talents sort of prove themselves against them is always a really good idea. And I think we will discuss this later, but if you look at the sort of talent that's currently in those roles as holding those sort of intermediary titles at the minute, we can kind of start to see why New Japan is having such difficulty at the minute progressing people up the card. So, but I think you're spot on. If you want to prove yourself in New Japan, I think the best people to do it against are people like Ishii and Shingo Takagi and these kinds of people.
Yeah, and I don't want Ishii. I'm not Ishii. I don't want Shingo to be in that gatekeeper role because I want him to be world champion. But we can't get what we want. We can't always have what we want. And speaking of not having things we want, let's get into the first major mistake. I'm not even going to count the Okada match as the first major mistake of the night. Okay. But I'll count this as the first major mistake of the night was the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship was defended. Actually, no. Before I get there, I'm gonna talk about something good that happened because I'm gonna go in chronological order of the card.
Okay, yeah.
Was the IWGP Women's Championship match, which ended up being the best match on the card.
I was very close to saying it's the best match from both the shows. I really, really like this match.
Yeah, I really like this match too. I'm a Mina Shirakawa believer. I wanted her to win here, but I'm okay that she didn't. The crowd, I feel like New Japan, if they're going to keep doing this, which I do think that they should, keep having like these matches on, the mainland shows. I do think they need to do a better job of introducing the talent. I think that they would have really benefited from having maybe a preview tag or, or maybe some on you. Maybe New Beginning in Osaka, something like that. And they would have really did it. And you know what? I think that a great example of this was if you think back to last year, the New Japan Strong Independence Day shows, right? Like they had the preview tag with Willow and Momokogo versus Julia and Thekla. And then the next day, the Julia versus Willow match. And I think that the preview tag would have really helped. But these women really did they managed to get the crowd into it. It was, but by the time they did, the match was over soon afterwards. But this was really great, and Mayu Otani proves why she's the icon, why she is one of the best women's wrestlers of all time. And I'm just really proud of Mina because she had a very important storyline coming into this. Like, last time New Japan saw her, she was essentially a valet for Yujiro Takahashi, some years ago, about 7 years ago, actually, just a pretty face. And to be a woman now wrestling for IWGP Gold on a New Japan mainland show, that was super cool. They killed it, and it ended up being the best match of the weekend, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's definitely in the top spot, or maybe second to maybe one of the matches on the second show. But I think you're totally right. I think it's I watched the whole of the show sort of all the way through, which was slightly regrettable. But it was the first point in the show where the crowd really got into a match. They really got them on side, and they went out and actually put on a wrestling match. And New Japan cards often suffer with this, where the undercard is just tags, and there's not that intensity that you'd expect from other promotions. And it's just how they do things. Yeah. So not really a criticism, but it's just how it is. And this was the point of the card where the intensity stepped up. They went out there, they started laying it in. I thought Mina had some really, really, really bright moments. Some really, really interesting reversals, actually. I thought she was really, really sharp. They both looked super sharp. And really great finish. And absolutely, like I said, one of my favorite matches from either of the shows. And a really nice sort of 12-minute match as well. It didn't go too long, didn't outstay its welcome, absolutely, but was also given sort of just enough time to take it to a different level to the previous tags, I think.
Yeah, like I think I would have liked for it to go a little bit longer, maybe 15, but I think that they were still in that sweet spot to where they were able to tell a really great story. Yeah. I would like to say that the night only went up from there, but it did not. Now we are at the first big mistake. The IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, El Desperado versus Show. This match.
it right. I was about to say it was fun while it lasted, but it wasn't. Like the Despy reign was very brief. And
I would just like to say, as a person who actually was present at Wrestle Kingdom and got into, you don't even want to know the type of financial hole I put myself in to go on that trip. And almost nothing from that show has stuck. Okada's gone. Tanahashi has lost the championship that he won that night. Despy has lost the championship he won that night. Naito's knees are fucked. Everything like I say, I'm like, was it me? Did I curse the night? Did I do it? Is it me?
It's very they knew you were in attendance, and they said all of that good stuff. We're gonna undo everything.
I think the thing is, I'll be completely honest. I didn't finish this show. I forced myself to finish night 2, but I didn't finish this show. After this match, this is where I clocked out because I was so trying to reconcile the feeling that I felt after Wrestle Kingdom. I literally, I was so filled with joy. Mm-hmm. I literally cried in a TGI Fridays next to the Tokyo Dome because I was so happy, just so happy to be there, happy to witness it. And reconciling that with El Desperado losing the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship via countout.
Oh, it's I mean, it's hard. I'm not one of those people who like to say, X rule is always bad, but a title changing on a count out is never going to be satisfying. Never. Pretty much never. You have to really, really build a match around it. you have to have someone dragging their opponent through the stands and leaving them for dead and doing it several times to really build up that moment, which didn't happen in this match. It was, it was a count out purely because House of Torture stopped Despy from getting back in the ring, which seems it's just an insane way to lose a title. It's an insane way to sort of stop that El Desperado story in its tracks. And I think you were right to then stop watching at this point, because 2 House of Torture matches back to back was pretty brutal. And there was I don't even think Despy had a good showing during this match, but he didn't have too much to work with. It was not just the decision that's disappointing, but the actual match was.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too negative. It was pretty bad, and it was.
I have no problem being negative when it comes to House of Torture. They're literally like the only group in wrestling, only people in wrestling where I feel 100% comfortable being 100% negative all of the time. And I think this, God, I think it's just like, I feel like people keep overlooking the fact of just like, okay, right? Like, we need to push Yoda. We need to push Shota. We need to push these guys. And I think that what people fail to keep missing, right, is that for New Japan to truly rebuild, you can't just have a strong heavyweight division. When New Japan has been at its hottest, the junior heavyweight division was just as must-see as the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
Right now, the junior heavyweight division only has 2 legitimate stars. 2. Hiromu Takahashi and El Desperado. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, that is literally it. In fact, the junior heavyweight division might be in more dire circumstances right now than the heavyweight division, simply because of that fact.
And I think the only division that's in a worse situation is the tag division.
Yeah.
And which is, I mean, that's I don't think that's even does that count as a division if you have, I mean, the belts, the champion's not even on this either show. Presumably one of them's injured, but I haven't heard anything. So you're not. It's just mind blowing, the state of both of those divisions. But I mean, another bad thing about this decision was that the anniversary show that's coming up was meant to be World Heavyweight Champion versus Junior Heavyweight Champion in the main event. So it would have been Naito versus El Desperado,
which would be fantastic.
Exactly, a matchup which people want to see. Their story going into it, the actual matchup is something people are interested in. And now you have Sho versus Naito in the main event of your anniversary show, and that is insanity. I think it's just it's maybe we'd have to go back how many years when Sho seemed like this kind of junior division prospect, and this is just like, we're so far into this House of Torture kind of thing. Like having that as a main event is just mind blowing, and I kind of can't believe it's happening.
Yeah, 52nd anniversary show. I'm gonna be honest, it's not looking great. It's just not looking great. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that Antonio Inoki might be rolling around in his grave right now.
That is a house show card, and that's being generous.
And it's just like, oh my God, 52 years in, man. Like, you survived COVID, you survived all these things, you've survived the MMA infusion, you've just survived all these things, and like, seriously, House of Torture is going to kill us all? That's going to be the thing that brings us down?
I mean, they've got 2 belts at the minute, and they're just, I mean, another aspect of this which is interesting is I've seen a bit of speculation about, you take the belt off El Desperado here, does that mean he's moving to sort of the heavyweight division, or alternatively, does that mean he's looking elsewhere? He's seeing what's happening in New Japan. Maybe his head's being turned by other companies or other things, because this is it's very hard to sort of, from the outside looking in, justify this decision. You sort of hope that they have a hidden plan going on in the background for Despy. And sadly, I kind of think that hidden plan is not a real thing, and it's just Gedo doing whatever the hell he wants and having fun with House of Torture, I think. It's interesting, especially because, I don't know, in an ideal world, you'd be using El Desperado's loss to elevate another talent and then sort of bolster that junior division if he was leaving it. So it's just so confusing, and I have no idea what the direction is, to be honest.
Yeah. And so El Desperado is 40. And I think that he's at a very like crucial point in his career to where his next step is very important. What are you going to do? Are you going to move up to heavyweight? Are you going to go somewhere else? Are you going to, stick around? What is the story? Because right now you have Hiromu is descending into madness. That's his story right now. Obviously, Mustafa Ali is coming in. You're going to have that match at Windy City Riot. Yep. There's a lot of stories to tell within LIJ right now, sure, but El Desperado is very interesting. Right now, he's not really attached to a faction. Minoru Suzuki has officially, left New Japan and is now a full-time freelancer. So, strong style isn't really like, the thing anymore, as a group.
No.
And obviously Ren has joined House of Torture. And so there's so much uncertainty. And I will say, like, El Desperado, ever since he's made this really distinct character change of really tapping into his more sadistic ways, he's a star. And you can't tell me that he couldn't easily fit in elsewhere in other places. Potentially, hey, I think he would be great in the Blackpool Combat Club. I don't know, like what if he goes to Big Japan? Who knows? Like, becomes you're gonna find El Desperado in GCW or something, like literally just become a full-time deathmatch wrestler. You don't know. You genuinely don't know. The possibilities are endless for him, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of there's not a lot of plans on what's next for him in New Japan right now. And going back to the junior division, him and Hiromu are the only true stars. Obviously, Master Wato is the person who was set up to be in that role, but for his ACL, I believe. And so he's going to be out for a while. And even before that, it's still never 100% clicked. Like, I think that he had a good showing in Best of the Super Juniors, and I think that Best of the Super Juniors, out of all of the New Japan tournaments last year, was certainly the strongest and the one that pointed to the most towards the future out of all of the tournaments that New Japan did. I think it's the only one that they did right last year, did completely right. But, and there's still a lot of junior stars that we don't know what's next for them. And so hopefully we'll get more clarification about that because, to be quite honest, Best of the Super Junior is right around the corner. So we're going to find out about a lot of these people pretty soon. But it's a lot of big question marks about El Desperado. Like I said, he's 40 years old now, which isn't doesn't mean like his career is over or anything. It's just more so like whatever his next step is probably going to be like his path for the foreseeable future. So that's interesting. We move into another House of Torture debacle, which is Shota Umino versus Evil. Actually, this is where I turned it off. So I turned it off right after entrances. I said, I can't fucking do it. I said, I can't fucking do it.
Yeah, I mean, both of these matches went over 15 minutes as well, which was a choice, definitely a choice. And it was like formulaic House of Torture match, right? Shota had like 1,000,001 comebacks against like a crowd of people. There was, it was 15 minutes long, and about 10 of that were just House of Torture heat segments, and had some really, silly shenanigans on the outside. And again, it's just another thing where you hope there are some plans in place, because Shota Umino came in and is he's had a bit of a rocky sort of time, I think. On one hand, he's been paired with some really great talents. He's had Moxley with him, and he's had sort of mini feuds with people like Ospreay. And looking back now, I still think he should have beaten Ospreay and had a real big boost of momentum, but didn't happen. And it's really interesting seeing him now, just losing to Evil. It'll be interesting, and yeah, it's just another one of those matches where it ends and you just think, what was the point? I mean, yeah, pretty tough to watch, especially after the previous match. And I do not blame you for turning it off at all.
I think Shota Umino, I think it's always going to come back to that Ospreay match for many of us, because everybody has something that they blame, right, for the current predicament in New Japan. Some people blame Okada. Some people blame this. I honestly put it all on booking. I put it all on booking. Like, Okada was never even booked against these guys. He never even smelled these guys. And not just Okada, no veterans. They put all of the young guys in one singular bracket and one singular block for the G1. They weren't allowed to touch anybody else. With Chase Owens and Sonata. That was what they got. That was literally what the young guys got. Shota Umino has the match of a career. The match of a career. Some people wait their entire careers to have a match like he had with Will Ospreay, and it was amazing, and it was beautiful, and it was triumphant, and he loses with no clear follow-up. And that match is used to build what looked like it was going to be possibly Ospreay versus Mox, but then ends up something to get over David Finlay, which we're going to get to next.
Oh,
no shit makes sense. And it's just and I don't think that Will Ospreay, just knowing how Will Ospreay is, I don't think that he would have been against losing to Shota Umino. I don't think he pulled that doesn't work for me, brother. I don't think that's what happened. And yet that's where we are. And it shouldn't have all fallen on Okada, because the thing is, you have to build moments. What did you want? You wanted him to line Tsuji, Shota, and Rin up in a row and said, okay, you all right, wrestle Okada back to back to back, and he's going to lose right now. You have to build to moments like that for them. They have to take losses before they can get wins. And they got neither of those. They haven't wrestled Naito. They haven't even wrestled Tana, who was, easy pickings right now. They haven't wrestled Ishii, as we mentioned before. The booking has been so questionable. And so we're like, yes, put Shota Umino in the title picture. And where did he get? Evil. And what does he do? Lose.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, we basically, I'm completely on your side about it. It's entirely the responsibility of the booker here. Essentially, you have to build up to these moments to get people over. You have to build up, especially in New Japan, where your storylines are based entirely around the belts because of the presentation. It's you just have to turn and look at the booker and say, you're essentially manufacturing your own issue here. Absolutely. So there's this card structure progression issue, and the solution is right there in front of them, where you have you have people holding belts who will then have a decent reign and will then use their loss to advance someone else up the card. Right? It's pretty simple. You have a whole host of really young, really talented people. You have Shota, to a lesser extent, you have Ren, you have Yuya, you have Tsuji, and these are all pretty hungry people who have had their ups and downs, but are young and are pretty talented, if maybe not consistent yet. And instead of having them earning belts and fighting with established veterans, like you said, having, on his way out, having Okada going on his, F them kids run after the Kaito Kiyomiya stuff and just beating the young talent in New Japan, which would have elevated them all massively.
Yes.
and just not doing that. And I mean, we can, like you said, we can draw this all the way back to the G1, which is was pretty much like an abject failure of booking in terms of building talent and progressing storylines and thinking of the long-term future, knowing that you will likely have some sort of talent exodus at some point. And so, you know, that should have been the catalyst to put new people further up the card. And they didn't do that. And now you see the people with these intermediate belts are either gaijins who have just come in and you don't know how long they're going to be there, and they're not, you know, at this point it's like, well, if, say, I don't know, Shota beats Matt Riddle or somewhere, how much does that actually do for him, really?
Nothing.
So you create this massive gap where you have a really isolated top of the card, a really isolated main event, whereas Naito versus whoever, and even that's an issue now because it's like, it's Naito versus who now? I mean, like, really, who is in a position where you can give him a believable opponent, someone who's going to actually, for lack of a better word, draw, you know, an interesting match with a kind of storyline behind it. You're sort of running out of talent because they're not there anymore, and you haven't pushed people up the card. So you have this sort of big group of people in the lower mid card and sort of towards the bottom of the card, and then you have this massive gap of sort of like nothingness, and then you have the main event isolated on top, and you can't get the people up because you've caused this disconnect. It's a nightmare. It's a complete booking like malpractice. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not great.
And going back to Naito's deteriorating fast, much faster than I originally thought. Like, I knew around the G1 that his time was limited because he was half concussed.
Right.
In that match with Ospreay, but I'm still like, you know, Naito, he's still one of the best big match wrestlers ever, right? And
yeah.
then you get to Wrestle Kingdom, and like, I'm not gonna lie, in the building, it felt a lot like the All In main event, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the building went platinum, platinum, great vibes, roll call, yada yada yada. And I got home and I rewatched that Naito versus Sonata match. I said, "Holy shit, this was clunky! Like, this was clunky." And we'll get more to that when we get to night 2.
Yeah.
But Naito is deteriorating fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to oppose you slightly when we get to that match, because like half clunky kind of messy wrestling kind of fits into like my preference sometimes.
I like that too.
But I can totally get your viewpoint as Naito is this, you know, this feels very much like his last hurrah at the top of the card. His last, you know, he got the belts, he's earned it. You know, happy to see him there, but you're absolutely right. I mean, physically, it's his days feel a little bit numbered.
He's almost at Tama levels, which I think is a great segue into the New Japan World Television title match. Listen, I wasn't a hater of Tanahashi winning the title in the Dome. I was for it. You know, said this is a great opportunity, one, for you know, Zack Sabre Jr. to be freed to go up the card. And I said, this is also a great opportunity for Tana to be able to work a much simpler style, you know, much more, you know, adjusted to like where his body is. Like, you know, 15-minute time limit sound perfect, you know, with him right now in his current state. And so I was like, he can actually hold this belt a while, drop this to one of the young guys. I wasn't opposed at all. And also, like, you know, I will say the aesthetics of President Ace champion Tanahashi. I'm sorry, I'm a vibes merchant when it comes to the Ace. And then, and here's the thing, I was actually in the building when the first vignette dropped of Matt Riddle coming to New Japan at New Year's Dash. And I was in the media section. I said, fuck. And then he challenged Tanahashi. I said, fuck.
Yeah.
And like, this fucker won.
Yeah.
And injured my Ace.
It's funny. I didn't actually see where he got injured during the match. And obviously, I watched the next show and was told he was injured. So I didn't even see it happen. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty unfortunate, right? This whole situation is just, it's Matt Riddle. We don't really need to say too much more. People know why we'll have issues with him inside and outside the ring. So, kind of strange.
On the Lions Mark logo, it did something to me. It did something to me. It did something to me. I can't explain the rage. And I think that's also why I had to stop watching the show, because I typically never get that filled with rage watching wrestling. I don't get filled with rage. That was why I stopped watching WWE, because I was just like, I go to bed every Monday night angry. I go to bed every Monday night angry and upset. That's not how wrestling should be. Like, I go to bed after these pay-per-views angry every time, like just spitting fire. And I was just like, maybe this isn't for me anymore. And this was the first time with New Japan where I was just like, oh, fuck, I can't do this. Like, I just can't. And like, seeing the results on Twitter, and they're like, and this Matt Riddle standing over Tana's body, I thought
the match was fine as a match. I actually thought Tanahashi looked better than when I saw him last. I thought he looked better physically than the Okada match, which was interesting. I think it was a bit shorter, which helped, but just the result kind of overshadows anything. And like you said, I thought when he won the belt, it was going to be the beginning of a kind of a reset for him, but also sort of continuing the momentum that Zach had sort of brought to that belt. And again, the format seems to suit him. I mean, maybe they could have reduced the time limit. 10-minute time limit might be better for Tanahashi at this point, but the belt kind of had its own identity thanks to Zach. Quick wins and defending it a lot, which I'm not sure Tanahashi would have been able to do, but there was some really good momentum and really positive sort of sentiment towards that championship, which just feels like you just completely undone it instantly. And especially because, is Riddle there long term? Is he going to be defending it on Road 2 shows? I mean that.
This is what I'm scared of. I'm so scared that he is going to be there long term, because honestly, nobody else is going to take him until like I think that's what's so terrifying right now. Is just like there's a good chance that he's going to be here for a really long time.
We can't get rid of him.
He's got MLW in New Japan. I'm just like, oh my God, this is awful. Like, this is awful. Like, I hate to be a Debbie Downer, truly. Like, you could have put the title on just about anybody else and I would have been okay. I wouldn't have been this bad. But seriously, and I think going back to what you said, it just kind of like, it feels like it erases all of the work that Zach did to make this title important. And I think 2023 was, in my opinion, the year of the mid-card titles, because world champions last year were not particularly strong at all. Like, at all, across every company, just about every company. And even in WWE, you had Gunther, who was holding it down. AEW, you had Orange Cassidy being strong. And then eventually, Christian Cage. And, in New Japan, you had Zack Sabre Jr., in Ring of Honor. Even Shibata got a fun, pure title run. Like, it was the year of the mid-card titles. And I think that Zach did so much work to make that title important and make it and so many meaningful defenses. Like, that match with Speedball will forever be ingrained in my memory of just insanity. And it just feels like, oh man, like it's all similarly to almost how I feel like with AEW, like with the international title right now. Just like, I feel like we had got it to such a strong spot. Well, after that first Orange Cassidy reign, and now it's just kind of like, I think we're going to get back on track with that, but it's just, I feel like it's lost its way. But with this,
I don't know. It was the perfect moment. I mean, like I said earlier, it's the perfect moment to if you're going to pass this on, you pass it to someone who's sort of coming through,
Yeah,
and again, you just hand it to a gaijin who's coming in out of nowhere, and it's like there's no forward thinking. You're not thinking about the people who probably should be earning. Imagine the amount of reps someone would get just defending that TV title all the time, and then how much they would progress up the card. So it's like this sort of willful ignorance. This just being happy to kind of leave people at a certain level and then give other people these opportunities, which would really help other people. And yeah, I think even I don't think there's even like an outsider perspective, like from an international fan. When Tanner lost, there was like this deflated kind of reaction in the room. I mean, for all we know, could Tanahashi have suffered the injury during the match and they changed it? I don't think. I think this was always planned, but it's like
yeah, that is
the energy was sucked out of the room. It completely sucked out of the room, and yeah, it's just again, it's just another frustrating thing, and I think it's pretty consistent across all of New Japan's sort of mid-card titles at the minute. It's just the same issue. You've essentially just got, in my opinion, the wrong people holding the belts and no real momentum up the card, and
absolutely.
it's a real shame.
Yeah, and I think like even think about imagine if you switch this card around. Imagine if it was Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Shota Umino. Like this could have been such a great opportunity, right? Like or even like some of these gaijins who are killing it. Like, you have Gabe Kidd. Like, I know Hanare is like out right now, but he would have been a great person. Like, Hanare should have the never open weight championship. Like, if you want to reestablish this as the BMF belt, that's who needs to be holding it. Like, seriously, the talent is there. It's just this refusal to use it. And also, like, somebody said this on Twitter. I forgot who it was, but there is a fear, and I think that fear is becoming a very real reality. New Japan and Puro, I'm not even going to say Puro as a whole, New Japan specifically is becoming a bit too westernized because why is it that these WWE rejects are being pushed straight to the top of the card? Like your first matches being title matches is kind of insane. And I'm saying this is like I'm all for. I do think that New Japan needs to treat foreigners better, absolutely, and I think that there's a possibility that they would still have Ospreay. I think if they did, just because you have to think Ospreay was begging for like years, give me the ball, push me as the guy, choose me, pick me, choose me, love me, all that, and they're like, no, but we have this. Same thing with Zack Sabre Jr. right now, and I think like hey, for foreigners who have shown you that they want to be here, you have to be willing to invest and meet them halfway.
Yeah. I think the best example of that is Aussie Open, who were begging for a contract for over a year, begging for a contract, couldn't get one, and yeah, I mean you just lose one of the best tag teams in the world. So it's happening time and time again, and
the division hasn't been the same since.
Yeah, exactly. That tag division is in absolute ruins. I mean, we don't even have to mention the tag champions. It's just insane. But yeah, it's also about the message that you send to your own roster, right? Putting the titles on these people instead of sort of supporting your more homegrown talent, especially people who've just come back from excursion in the last few years. Yeah, just bad messaging externally and internally. And you can see why people will be getting frustrated and following Okada, Ospreay, Suzuki, Tamatonga out the door, I think. Yeah, I don't think this is certainly not the last of the talent we'll see being frustrated, I think.
No. And that's a great segue into the main event of this card, Nick Nemeth versus David Finlay.
What a main event, huh? Imagine wait, this show was like what, 3 hours long, maybe longer.
Yeah.
And this was the main event, and it was I mean, as annoyed as I am at Gedo as a booker, then getting to the end of this show after the House of Torture matches, after seeing Matt Riddle win, and then seeing him out there at ringside taking low blows and distracting the ref and doing all this goofy crap, and it was just like my like anger at that point was just it was making it hard to watch. I'll be honest.
Mhm.
I was like, there has to be different priorities here. I feel, yeah, this match was fine. Like, I think most of this card was just fine. It's certainly not a thrilling main event, and just didn't have much juice. Didn't have much like escalation to it at all. No urgency really. And I mean, it just didn't feel that earned by the end of it. The actual sort of finish was a bit flat, and what are you going to do? It's sort of the second or third match I've seen of Nick Nemeth since he left the WWE, and haven't been so impressed, I guess. He's fine. I actually thought David Finlay was pretty good in this match. I've not been a David Finlay lover, but I thought his performance in this match, and especially in the cage match, was actually quite commendable, to be honest.
I agree about the cage match. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I thought he had a really, really strong performance there. But yeah, I mean, I like Nick Nemeth's effort that he put into it, like his selling, which is just his thing, and it just didn't get there for me. It was like, this is the main event. And the title changed, and cool. I think after all the other matches, this sort of all added up by the end, and I was kind of done with it at this point, and very much ready to move on to the next show, I think.
Yeah. How do I say this? I was never a big Dolph Ziggler fan. I respect him as a wrestler. I think that he was a very good wrestler, a very athletic wrestler. I could definitely see talent, and I do think that WWE squandered a lot of his potential. However, my biggest worry of just like when I hear somebody say, I didn't even know what New Japan or Indies were until I got fired. That's kind of a question mark for me. I don't know. And just because like you only know one style. All you know about wrestling is WWE. You don't know anything outside of it. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate the willingness to learn and go to places like New Japan. However, right now New Japan needs leadership, right? They need people that they can invest in. And like it goes back to, we can't keep watering down the style. We can't keep Americanizing this style. Like, if foreigners, of course, New Japan is supposed to be the best wrestling in the world. So, of course, welcome the best foreigners in the world. But if you are going to hold a top belt in this company, you need to hold the banner for this style, like the Kenny Omegas and the Will Ospreys of the world and the Jay Whites of the world. They became strong style. They adapted themselves to this style of wrestling. Like they had to immerse themselves. They had to really, Zack Sabre Jr., right? And I don't get that right now from Nick Nemeth. And I don't think that we will get that. And especially for a while, it takes a much longer than one match to truly, learn the culture and everything. And so putting a top belt on him, I'm gonna be honest, I have zero interest in watching him have WWE style matches in New Japan, especially on mainland shows. I have zero interest in that.
I mean, it's going to take him a while to get that out of his system as well, because it's
absolutely.
I mean, how long he was there for 20 years, maybe more than that at this point.
Almost 20. Yeah.
And it's like, and all the matches I've seen a couple of TNA ones. I've seen this now, and he's still working those kind of matches, and it's like I said, it's disappointing. But to have that in a main event of a big New Japan show
for the second highest title in the company,
it's not a great look. It's I mean, we sort of have to level some of the blame that they've got David Finlay in this position in the first place as like his counterpart. I'd like to sort of compare, if we look back and say Nick Nemeth joined a couple of years ago or a year ago, and then and his opponent would be like Jay White, we might be speaking differently about this match. I think
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
there's I guess there's two sides to it, but it's like putting Nick Nemeth in this position and sort of off the bat will be interesting. I like the idea of him taking the global title around a little bit, and but it's certainly not the choice I would have made if you're trying to sort of establish this title as your sort of secondary title. So we'll see how it goes. Match itself was whatever, and again, just another title change where I'm not entirely sure the direction. I don't like it, and a little bit scared, to be quite frank.
And also, like, hate to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to do it anyway. Going back to why the fuck did Shota lose to Will Ospreay? Because
Yeah.
the whole point of that was apparently to create this new title, put them in a match with David Finlay to put David Finlay over as this top gaijin, right? And literally a month later, the very next month, have him lose it. So what was the point? Shota could have just carried the belt. Shota could have just won the belt then. Actually, you didn't even have to put on a show. Mox could have won the belt.
Yeah, and anyone could have won the belt. I mean, Shota could have won it directly with Ospreay without even needing to be in this three-way. There were so many other options. Mox is an interesting person to bring up, especially when we're talking about these sort of gaijin talents having belts in New Japan, because that's kind of Mox is kind of looming over that heavyweight title at the same time. So it's I mean, we're going to spend most of this podcast just knocking New Japan's booking, because it's in a complete mess at the minute.
I would like to say, I'm on the train. I think Mox should be Naito. I think Mox
I wouldn't be mad.
And the reason why, and people are just like, why are you putting him on a part-timer? And why are you going to do this or a foreigner? I'm going to be honest. One, New Japan really has nothing left to lose at this point, to be quite honest. Like,
it's a free hit.
Do you think that, like, Naito's not going to be giving out singles matches like a hug, okay? Like, let's just be real. We already talked about the body deterioration. But Mox has flat out said on numerous occasions, one, he has residency in Japan now. Two, he plans to not only does he plan, but he's wrestled New Japan matches a lot more in the past, well, let's say 6 to 8 months than he has, probably since 2019. He's flat out said that the BCC plans to be very active in Japan this year. And 4, let's just be real. There's not much for him going on right now in AEW. Because if it was, why is him and Claudio facing FTR at the pay-per-view?
Right. It goes to the same, like, they don't have like too much going on AEW side, but now that Sanada's had his rematch, what's even Naito's motivate? Like, who's going after Naito? What's his next defense? Like, even that's not particularly clear. So it's like, having someone like Mox at least gives the heavyweight title some direction, because at the minute there doesn't seem to be any.
Absolutely. And I think, like, right now, the only interesting matchups that are interesting for me for Naito are both within his own faction, and they haven't teased any of those. So I don't think that is happening anytime soon. Obviously, Yota Tsuji says that he wants the world title, but I don't think that. I don't think they're going to run that anytime soon.
I think the only other person they've teased wanting the title is Zack Sabre Jr., who, after his match against Yuji Nagata on the first show of Sapporo, went over to the commentary desk and said, who's going to be the world champ, because I'm coming for them. So his intentions are being laid down, but I think that entirely rests on the New Japan Cup, and again, that sort of Moxley thing looming over Naito is sort of, who do you pull the trigger on here? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I've said this, and we'll get there when we talk about the New Japan Cup. If you're not ready to put the title on Zack Sabre Jr. at Sakura Genesis, I say put the title on Mox. Like, I don't see a problem with it. And honestly, hate to say it, but New Japan, you kind of squandered the moment that Will Ospreay served you on a platter when it comes to Shota Umino. And so luckily he has another moment waiting to happen. You know, he has another moment waiting to happen. And I think that that's what separates Shota from the rest of them, because there's so much more crowd and fan investment in Shota just because we've been on this journey with him. Like, you know, since he was a young lion, we watched Mox drag him and choose him and, you know, basically build him and mold him. And then he goes off to Osprey. And then, like, we've seen him be molded and shaped, and we've gotten to see his ups and downs. We've watched him, like, you know, have his identity crisis and try to figure out who he is. And so people are really invested in that story of Shota Umino. And I think that Mox match is a huge question mark. And I think, you know, it was teased, you know, like obviously we thought we were going to get it a little bit sooner. I thought that it should have been a Wrestle Kingdom match this year, but I think certainly for next year, I think that is a match that you want in the Dome. Like, that's a huge match. Shota Umino versus Jon Moxley, that passing of the torch, like, and imagine like just I feel like it's waiting for you. Shota Umino versus Jon Moxley, and you have Red Shoes Umino as the referee. That is literally box office shit. That's a box office shit. And I hate that the IWGP US Championship doesn't exist anymore, because that would have just been like, you know, the perfect, you know, linchpin for all of this. But yeah, like I think that it's I would go with it. And I think, like, you know, Zack Sabre Jr., let him dethrone some of these. I'm gonna be honest, let him dethrone Nick Nemeth. I don't know. Just I have so many feelings. I just have so many feelings. And
it's tricky. It's like, at this point you're because, like we said earlier, it's like you've got all these people sort of on a similar level, right? You're essentially, when you do finally want to, because you're essentially having to fast track people from doing really nothing to say to the world heavyweight title. You're ending up with, like, also going to have to bottleneck your own talent. So it's like, oh, if I pick Zach, right, then what do we do with Shota? And it's, you know, you get in this, you know, even bigger mess. You know, I like the story Shota and Mox. That's built in. That's also why I would have liked to see Shota dethrone Tanahashi instead of Riddle, because there's also those comparisons which get made all the time. Sort of the two
which
influences.
Himself, right?
Yeah. So and then I think Zach also has, you know, he's got a history with Bryan Danielson, which essentially puts him immediately into a feud with the BCC, which makes him a fairly logical Moxley opponent. So, you know, maybe you have Mox beat Naito, and later on, that's when you have Zach beat Mox as part of a wider BCC feud. I mean, there's like stories there, but do I trust Gedo to get it right? I don't think I trust anyone to get it right, because they're in such a mess at the minute. So, it's just going to be really difficult to see where they end up here. And again, it does feel kind of bad that it does seem like a lot of their solutions at the minute are getting a Gaijin or getting someone from AEW, or it's seemingly only sending a more negative message to their homegrown talent. So we'll see how it goes for them. But it's a bit of a mess, and I'm kind of worried about what Naito's next defense looks like.
Yeah, and I think also at this point, I think truly, even though it's not exactly their fault, because I think that AEW would be fools to not make a bid on some of these talent who wanted to go elsewhere. Like, because I'm not gonna lie, like I've said it before and I'll say it again, I would have eaten a jean jacket doused in gasoline if Kazuchika Okada went to the Fed. I am not joking. If Will Ospreay, if I had to see Will Ospreay in NXT, I might.
Yeah.
So, you know, hey, And also even people like Shibata, like, New Japan weren't going to use them. So I get it. But, hey, the least that AEW could do right now is like, you can lend them one of your top guys. Right now, you have so much talent going in. Mox isn't going to be in the world title picture anytime soon. BCC has already slotted. They basically said this year they are the guardians of the Forbidden Door. CMLL, New Japan, this is their jam this year when it comes to, Mox, Claudio, and Brian, like going to Arena Mexico, going to Japan. They're here, they're there, they're everywhere. So I think that, that was a good call. And speaking of new talent, of talent that has jumped ship, we had Okada's retirement match, his goodbye farewell match on the New Beginning of Sapporo Night 2 card with Chaos. Tanahashi was not able to be a part of this match, and so they subbed him out with Yo. And Matt Riddle was on the other side.
Yeah.
Hey, this match he played the hits. It was emotional. I will say, these last couple weeks of getting to see Okada really give in to his goofier side, it's gotten me excited about what he can do in AEW. Just because, like, I think that American TV wrestling will allow him to lean in more to a part of his personality that he wasn't able to be as much in New Japan because of this stoic final boss. And I was even thinking about DDT. I was looking at the new guy that debuted in DDT recently, who's freaking awesome. And I was like, I wonder who Okada could have been if he came up in the DDT system rather than the New Japan system. Like, I think he still becomes a mega star. But imagine if he's able to, like, really lean it more into those goofier aspects of his personality. Like, somebody was like, maybe he would have ended up in a trio with the Golden Lovers, or he would just have been he would have just been Kenny Omega. I think that's a real possibility.
Yeah, it depends if they would have sent him over to TNA as well and done all that. I mean, he did do his fair share. He had that balloon gimmick for a bit, and it was he's done his fair share of silly stuff. But in recent times, it's been very much Rainmaker. I'm the king of this promotion,
exactly.
And the New Beginning Sapporo shows have definitely been a chance for him to show off a bit of his range, a bit of his silly side. Which again is fun. It doesn't make for the best matches, but they're an 8-man tag and a 10-man tag. You can't really ask for too much, to be honest, with them. And it was nice. Nice to see. He didn't have the UV color changing thing for this match like he did the night before. And it's really sad to see Tanahashi actually on commentary for this.
He looks so sad.
Yeah.
He looks so sad.
Yeah, and you'd love to see them in the. I mean, they did have a singles match. It should have been the final match. That's the perfect send off,
and it was so beautiful.
Yeah, super sad to see him on the sidelines just watching this. At least he was on the broadcast, but yeah.
A lot of us have said that of just like it should have been the final match, but I think that a lot of us underestimate. And I think it's because, like, in most times they're really not a real faction, just to be quite honest. But I think we really underestimated what Chaos meant to Okada. And I think I realized in, like, those last 2 matches that, oh wow, like, he really, really felt super attached. And obviously in the earlier parts of his career, it was a much bigger factor, but in recent years, it really hasn't been. But I think it really re-emphasized to me, like, oh wow, like, he really took pride in Chaos, and that was his thing. Like, he really loved being a part of that. It really felt like he truly, much like Will Ospreay, right? He said he wanted to end New Japan with his brothers, and I felt like Okada was very similar in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, and you saw it from Ishii's emotions afterwards, and that was clearly I went through sort of the same realization as you did of I didn't realize how much as someone who watches pretty regularly watches all the big shows, but perhaps doesn't appreciate the sort of history of chaos and how much it means to Okada. I was quite surprised to see how much sort of reverence that he himself was putting onto this group, and then how big a part they played in his sort of send off. It was nice to see, and a nice sort of thing to sort of realize, even if it was at the sort of late stage in his final moments in New Japan. But it had a nice feeling to it, nice send off. But wasn't much more than that. Very much a sort of symbolic match of have a nice little send off him, and not his last moments in the ring. Was a little bit later on, but the last match in a New Japan ring.
It was beautiful. And I think also we've really gotten to see, and I keep telling myself I'm going to write about it, and I just need to. But this last year, we've really gotten to see Okada really be a team player, just because like that was the first title and the only title he ever won in New Japan outside of like the big heavyweight title was that never 6-man championship. And he blew it out of the water. Like, those are some of the best 6-man matches I've ever seen in my life. And I think growing up like a WWE fan, like I think I was traumatized by the word 6-man tag for so long. Like, I can always hear Teddy Long's voice in my head saying, "This is going to be a 6-man tag team match." Like I can hear it in my voice. And so like I was traumatized from 6-man wrestling for a very long time. But this past year, and I think the Okada Tanahashi Ishii reign was such a huge part of that. They had such great matches with just so many different levels of opponents, from the old guys like the Tenzan. I forgot Tenzan, what was the Tiger Mask, and I forgot the other guy. They had great match with them. TMK, BC. Like we got to see such a wide range of just excellent, matches, and so it's been really cool. Like to see him in those team settings. I hope we get to see it in AEW because I think that there's a special brother tag team that
I think there's a 6-man team he'll slot right into.
I think there's a 6-man team that he'll just slot right into. If anybody asks me, but I think that's been really cool too. And speaking of goodbye matches, there was another goodbye match. Tamatonga's last match. We had old GOD versus new GOD. So Tamatonga, Tongaloa, and Hikuleo and El Phantasmo. And so this one I think was also for the vibes. Like very.
You're forgetting Jado.
Jado was the special referee. He was. This was a great vibes match. I think, played the hits. Tama and Tongaloa came out in the old, to the old music with the face paint and everything. Like, was it the best match in the world? No, but definitely sentimental and definitely emotional. And I think it was a really great. I think it was a really great, tribute to like his career, and also it was a reminder that I feel like New Japan dropped the ball last year with the Bullet Club 10th anniversary. I think it should have been a huge thing. Because when you look around at factions that changed the world, literally changed the wrestling world as we know it, Bullet Club did that. Like so much of this era of professional wrestling in every single company is shaped by Bullet Club in some way, form, or fashion.
Yeah, if you look at every major promotion in the world, there's pretty much a Bullet Club faction in most of them, right?
Literally.
Even if they're not called Bullet Club by name, I guess in WWE, I think they have a different name.
They're like just the club.
Yeah. So, but yeah, in AEW, there's TNA has the tag team, obviously, and. Yeah, so in lots of most of the major promotions, there is still a presence of Bullet Club, and you've got to kind of appreciate the past members they've had, the current members they do have, and the next generation coming through in New Japan, which is maybe the most promising sort of group, Bullet Club group, in a few years now. I think certainly since I mean, like the War Dogs are like this new blood coming through.
Probably the
That's
best since the Elite era.
Yeah, I think we probably reached, we got to some peaks during the sort of Jay White takeover, but it
Yeah.
never got back to that kind of level of the
Mhm.
sort of the pre Jay White era, in my opinion. But the War Dogs are sort of breathing life back into that faction and kind of rescued it, because there was a scary moment where Bullet Club was kind of a bit passe. It was getting a bit like, oh, we're still doing Bullet Club in 2022, huh? That kind of
Yeah,
thing. So
those tweets were flying. Those tweets were, people
yeah,
are still wearing Bullet Club shirts. And I
yeah.
will say, like, you go to New Japan and America shows, Bullet Club t-shirts are still everywhere. It's so clear that Bullet Club is how so many people found New Japan Pro Wrestling and
Yeah,
found this
absolutely.
non-WWE wrestling. Like, even me, before, I wasn't even watching New Japan.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember in 2015, 2016, being in high school and going to Hot Topic and seeing Bullet Club shirts in there. And that was the thing. That was like, literally, that was the thing. And so, like, it's hard to put the impact into words. And I think that, probably 10 years from now, for like, 20th anniversary, there will be documentaries and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like New Japan should have done a better job as far as like truly celebrating. Like, I know they had a few sales and pro wrestling tees and shit, but honestly, it really could have been in his own show, like his own tribute show. Or I thought last year that at Forbidden Door they were going to do a Bullet Club Civil War. Maybe they would just let things breathe. David Finlay was still finding his footing, and Jay White had just got AEW. So hopefully, maybe that's going to be the plan this year for Forbidden Door. So
yeah, I mean, because they do need to start setting up some Forbidden Door storylines, and especially with the sort of talent movements recently. It's going to be interesting to see how that shapes up.
And I think that's also interesting too, because I thought that they're going to offset that this year by adding in CMLL, but with all these visa issues,
yeah, I saw that tweet and I was like, well, that's Forbidden Door in jeopardy now, because now if you're forced to be more reliant on your New Japan partnership, it's like, well, I don't want to see FDR versus Chase Owens and Kenta. You know what I mean? I don't want to see these matches. So,
I will quite literally have to schedule multiple visits with my therapists if I have to watch FTR versus Chase Owens.
It's So, I mean, again, when we talk about Bullet Club, and I mentioned War Dogs, but I do want to mention Bullet Club Gold as well, and that sort of early run they had in Collision with the FDR feud, I think was helped kind of revitalize a Bullet Club faction in the States. So that was definitely part of it as well, for sure.
Yeah, we just need Juice Robinson back. I think like he is the linchpin. Like, he makes it work. And on the AEW side, like he's the secret sauce that makes it all work. Speaking of Bullet Club, then we had a tag match. This was really more so of a nothing match, to be quite honest. But David Finlay and Gato versus Nick Nemeth and Taguchi. So
I'll be honest, I skipped this match as soon as I saw it was David Finlay and Gato. I wasn't going to watch it.
Just to do it, I will say, like, the undercard, the pre-LIJ portions of this card were not particularly special. And I mean, even some of the LIJ portions, but I will say that the night certainly picked up once we moved on to the LIJ portion of the night, which is finally the end of LIJ versus Just Five Guys, because I've felt like I've seen every single iteration of these matches that I could possibly see. And they decided we're going to end it for real. We're going to have these singles matches and put it to bed. And so we had started off with Bushi versus Taka Michinoku. This match was cool. It's pretty short. I didn't hate it. Didn't love it either, but
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, Taka put on about 4 or 5 different face locks, which slowed down the middle part of the match, which was interesting. It was like 9 minutes or something, so it was pretty fine, I think.
So we had Bushi win that one. Then we went to Hiromu versus Doki. Now, this is where the card picked up for me. This was the first time that I felt like I actually really, really liked a match.
Yeah.
Since Mina versus Mai the night before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this was the match that, you know, I watched lots of the sort of back to back, and I got to this match and was like, okay, we need something here, and this was like the feeling was completely restored. Definitely the first sort of engaging match since the women's match, I think. And as someone who hasn't seen a lot of Doki matches, I was really impressed here actually, and kind of excited to see the best of Super Juniors this year with him.
I think Doki. I became a Doki truther last year for at best of the Super Juniors. I was like, no fucking way. Like, this dude is really awesome. And I think like Doki is so underrated. I think especially like him being in just Five Guys, like he's like maybe what, third, fourth, fifth on the totem pole. But he's so great. And I think Hiromu is really like, you know, he's kind of insane now and like just trying to find himself as a character. And so these two together were this worked. I'm really, like you said, this was the match that made me say like, oh, I'm super excited for Best of the Super this year. And that's how you're supposed to feel. Like you're supposed to like watch some of these matches and feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm excited to see what New Japan has to offer. And so this one achieved its goal.
And the crowd got really into it. It was like the first time where the energy was brought back into the building and it was loud in there. So you know, I appreciate New Japan's undercard kind of system, but like the crowd was dead by this point. They need something, and they absolutely brought it. Super great, snappy. Just what you'd expect from a really decent junior heavyweight match in New Japan. So perfect match to sort of kick off the final parts of this card.
Yes, and so, you know, I made the mistake of getting excited because we had two really great matches in a row. After that, we had Shingo Takagi versus Taichi, which cooked last year. If you were, they had a war for the KOPW championship, which I felt was, man, that championship felt special in Shingo's hands. It felt special in Shingo's hands.
He's a special wrestler. I think he'll make any title look good. I think
Shingo's he could make that WWE 24/7 title feel like a world championship. Like his KOPW run last year was unfair. Like I said it before, but that match he had with Hinari last year, that not the gauntlet match, but the what was it called? Triad match. Ultimate triad match during WrestleMania weekend. Best match of the weekend, easily. I think Meltzer went what, 5.5 on it? I think 5.5.
I can't remember now.
I think it was 5.5. But yeah, like this was great. Taichi remains so underrated.
He's got like a thing where he has this kind of presentation where he sings himself to the ring and he rips off his trousers and does all this stuff, and then he takes all his stuff off and you're like, that's a big man. Like he's big and he whacks people. So he's got this kind of contrast going on, which I find great. But it's so funny every time I don't see his matches that often, so I always sort of have to remind myself after his entrance that like this guy can go, and he does. He absolutely brought it against Shingo, and they smacked each other. It was really good.
And you know, it's something about Taichi. Whenever he rips those pants off, like I just start to squeal. It's like and that's when the match really kicks into full gear, and it's just like And you know, I had to remind myself, you know, Taichi always seems to cook during the New Beginning tour, because last year, you know, not too long before Ospreay got injured in the New Japan Cup, him and Ospreay had a fantastic singles match last year during the New Beginning tour. Might have been in Sapporo, it might have been in Osaka, I don't know, but I remember it was really great. And so this was awesome. So, you know, right now I'm feeling good. I'm like, we've had 2 back-to-back matches.
Yeah.
Great matches.
We were flying at this point. We were absolutely flying.
We were flying. And then we
Yeah, plummeted.
I think I'm super hurt because I was singing this upcoming match I'm about to talk about praises.
Mm-hmm.
I said that so much of my excitement for the future of New Japan hinges on this match. I think that these guys can deliver. I watched the mini documentary, like, you know, the interviews that on the New Japan YouTube. Like, I was super excited about it. I think I've talked about it on this show, how excited I was about it. That's Yota Tsuji versus Yuya Uemura, the hair versus hair match. And how do I say this? If this match had no stipulation, I think that it would have been rated much higher. Would it have been like a 5-star match? Absolutely not. But if it had no stipulation, I think it would have been rated much higher. However,
however, there was a stipulation.
And not only just any stipulation, the stipulation. Like a hair versus hair match is the equivalent of, it means, to me, it means blood feud.
Yeah.
It means like whatever it takes to win, especially for guys like this who had the most beautiful heads of hair. Like
they actually had something to fight for, you know?
Like long hair, thick hair that is literally like half of their personality. Like, and I tweeted this, but I feel like New Japan right now, and this is specifically for the Japanese talent, and I think the only people who don't have this problem, I think it's Kosei Fujita and sometimes Shota Umino. These are guys who can wrestle, who have excellent fundamentals. They don't know how to brawl.
No.
There's no intensity.
Yeah.
There's no level of like, there's no aggression. It's just, I don't feel like, I look like there was no fighting on the outside. They didn't leave the ring. It was so tame.
Yeah, I think that's the problem they have is, in my eyes, this match sort of set them back. You know, months of progress, months and months, maybe years. It was like, it was a match that kind of exposed both of them.
Both of them.
I've seen lots of people sort of go after Yuya more than Tsuji, but I think they were both exposed here as sort of not really. I don't know. It sounds stupid for me on the outside to say this, but like not really getting the match's kind of narrative and like the importance of it. But maybe they got it, but they just didn't get that over with the crowd, because it was like you say, this is a blood feud. Essentially, this is everything. This is like, to win. This is scratch, bite, claw, do everything you can to survive. This should have been everything. It should have been full effort, intensity. It should have been violent, and instead they deliberately did the first half of the match as their sort of young lions selves, and even commentary. I was watching with English commentary, and Chris Charlton was repeating, getting this over, like, oh, they're wrestling like they're young lions. They're going back to fundamentals. I was like, why? It's a hair versus hair match. They should be clawing each other's eyes out in the aisles.
You don't grab a fucking kendo stick.
Yeah, it was bizarre, and the fact was they had deliberately set it up to be like that, because there was a turning point in the match where they have like this double standing count going on, and on commentary, Chris is going, and now they're resetting. It's like the first part of this match never happened. He like says that, and it's like, well, why even do it then? Just go to the bit where they're fighting, because it's a hair versus. It's completely bizarre setup. I don't even know how they do it in New Japan. I don't know how they build matches. I don't know whose responsibility that is. It's just like, it was just wrong, right? It was just the wrong setup for this kind of match, for the stipulation. It meant a lot more before, and afterwards it was like, why did we even bother? Because like you said before, this was the match I was looking forward to, and I thought they squandered the opportunity, to be honest, because this should have been really good. And I'd like to think that Yota and Yuya are both talented enough. We've seen glimpses of it, and they just got this completely wrong. I think just completely wrong. Super disappointing.
I think, and also, like you said, a lot of people are getting down on Yuya, but I think I walked away from this match more disappointed in Yota Tsuji just because, like, he has a very high ceiling and he's very talented. And I have no doubt that one day he will main event Wrestle Kingdoms and be a world champion. However, something's not clicking with these guys. I don't know what it is, but like they don't have the dog in them. And it's just like they are getting, and maybe I don't know if like Shibata trained his dojo guys differently versus everybody else, but like it's a huge difference against the War Dogs. I will say they are paling in comparison. Like
imagine Gabe Kidd in a hair versus hair. I mean, he would be a man possessed. I mean, he's got like that intensity, and he knows what a match like this needs. And it's not a million arm drags. As much as I love Yuya's arm drags, wow, perfect. But like, we don't need that, and we don't need this whole story of like Tsuji's using his strength and you just countering him and like dodge. It's like just fight. This is you should be fighting for your lives here, because what is at risk here isn't just your hair. It's obviously like what the hair represents. It's about being put back and essentially becoming a young lion again and finding a new path and being reborn. There's so much on this, and they didn't get any of that across at all. It was just it's so frustrating.
It honestly set them back, and I think like you go back to Corkin, and I've said this before. I think about the match that Shota and Ren had in Corkin. They main evented. It was the same night as the Okada Tana Ishii versus TMDK match, and they were given the ball, right? And that match lacked the intensity that we were looking for, that we really want. But about 2 weeks later, Hanare and Gabe Kidd have a match in Corkin with nothing on the line and nearly concuss each other.
Yeah.
Double count out because off of a mutual headbutt, like just raw, ruthless aggression. And I think that, some people might not like that, because somebody I think said in my comments, they were like, well, I like that about Yuya and Yota, and I don't like the Gabe Kidd stuff. And like, I don't know what to tell you, but that's too damn bad. Like, I just...
They don't have to be like that all the time. I mean, like Gabe Kidd's pretty consistently mental, and like that's his thing. But like for a hair versus hair match, you've got to bring it out the bag. You can't just have a normal match and then have it end and then cut the hair. It's like the finish to this match was, quite frankly, mind blowing. It was just like he hit him with his finish and pinned him. It's insane.
And if you even if you go back to like compare like Yota Tsuji to like a talent like Will Ospreay, I think what makes Will Ospreay special, what makes the Kenny Omegas of the world special, is being able to tap into that second level. Just, who can do the glitzy glam, dazzle you with their athletic maneuvers and just that. But when the time comes, they can become those sadistic bastards who you're like, you sick fuck. And it's just like, oh my gosh. And it makes me think of just like, I at first was ready. I was like, Yota Tsuji is ready to face Naito. No, he's not.
Yeah, no, he's not. Exactly. This is that's the worry, because people have been, people were saying when Yota Tsuji came in, like he should have just won the championship, like this kind of Okada story, come back, win it. This match was like, he is miles off. They're both miles off that kind of level. And they got really exposed here. And was it the sort of stage, were they nervous to sort of live up to that level? I don't know, but they just didn't set themselves up to cover themselves in glory in the first place. They went into it with the wrong plan and executed it pretty clumsily, to be honest. Even the actual sort of wrestling was fairly clumsy, so I'm not sure what was going on. Maybe it was the moment, Okada's send off. Maybe that affected them, but it's hard to find excuses here, because it was, pretty really, really underwhelming, let's say.
I'm really glad that you said that, because in the past few weeks, I have been going through Okada's career, and specifically towards the beginning, and I've been trying to really pinpoint what made him so special? Like, what made him so special initially? Obviously, we know now, but like, what made him so special initially? Where New Japan felt like he can defeat a 36-year-old Tanahashi on his literally on his first month post excursion. What made him so special? And you go through that match and you can literally tell, like, was the confidence 100% genuine at that point? No. However, he had that edge. Like, he had that it factor. Like, I went back and I rewatched that first match with Tanahashi. Actually, I went back and watched his very first match with Tanahashi when he was still a young lion. And he had that edge then with black hair and black trunks.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And I think, like I said, I think that Yota Tsuji, I think that all of these guys are super talented, but that edge, like that competitive edge, I don't see it. I think it's a lot of pretty moves and it's just like, oh, look, I have great arm drags. Like, what does that do? Like, you know, and I feel it's just so frustrating. And I wonder, maybe it was Okada being there, because we have to think in the purpose of like storyline, that's the closest that they've ever been to Okada, like with him being right there on his commentary. Then we go to afterwards, Yota Tsuji essentially saying like, this is your fault. You did this. Are you happy now that you left? And I'm just like,
Tsuji going up to Okada afterwards and saying, I'm disappointed in you after that match is hilarious. I think you said it earlier, like maybe they just don't have it in them. Like, but
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. They need to get the Ishii test. They need to be slapped around.
They need Shibata to slap it into them, right?
Literally. You have to remind yourself that there was a time when Antonio Inoki was literally slapping people as a badge of honor, like slapping the new talent, like, you know, like it was. We don't have that. Like, these guys are not getting slapped. And I think Shota, at least, you know, he had that outside. That's the difference why he can tap into that other level, even though he doesn't often, but he can, because he had those outside influences. Like, you know, he had Ospreay, he had Mox. Like, he knows how to get a little crazy. And Ren, like, you know, he's House of Torture, so he can't get crazy without getting goofy.
Yeah.
And it's just like... This was super disappointing for me, because I think
even Shota's had issues with it as well. Until the Ospreay match, I
until the
haven't
Ospreay
really seen from him. And it's just an issue that they've got. They don't, you know, we keep going back to people like Gabe Kidd who have that edge. I think Kaito Kiyomiya has that edge. I think people like Yuma Anzai already have that edge. They can turn it on like that, and you see it in them, and they have that kind of intensity. I mean, we're going to keep going back to like how this match was set up, but the moment they did a top rope Spanish fly in this match, I was like, they've missed it. That's it. They've completely missed the point in this match.
You know, I'm glad you brought up Yuma Anzai, and honestly, I would love to have you back probably for the Champion Carnival preview show.
Oh yeah,
Yuma Anzai, in my opinion, in 1 year and maybe like a year and a few months, has eclipsed most of the young guys from all of the other Japanese promotions. And it's simply because he's super talented too, but like he's been positioned perfectly into, like, the thing is, they're not scared of him losing. So he's able to wrestle all these guys. He's been wrestling top guys. He's wrestled Kento.
Yes.
He's wrestled Yuma. He's wrestled Suwama. He's wrestled Yuji Nagata. He went over to, you know, Noah for the N1. He wrestled Katsuhiko Nakajima. He wrestled Oshiozaki. He wrestled El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. He wrestled Nabu Soya. He's wrestled this wide variety of opponents. He's wrestled other, you know, young top guys. He's wrestled Kaito Kiyomiya. And it's that diversity of opponents that's made him so great. Like, the only thing, like, he has the edge. He does need to work on presentation, because he can't wear that Romance Dawn shirt forever. But it's like, it's clear that he's getting there. And even like with Kaito, I think that's why Kaito stood out so much in the G1 this year, is because it kind of works in his favor sometimes, even though that in Noah, he's the only young guy. So you're working with a lot of the old Puro geezers. And it's just like a whole bunch of like, yes, like, of course you're going to learn quickly when Takashi Sagura is slapping the shit out of you. Like, of course you're going to learn from Michi Marufuji chopping the shit out of you. Like, like you're wrestling Kaiji Muto. Like, that's, of course, it makes sense, right? And I think that these guys, they haven't wrestled Minoru Suzuki.
Right.
Like, they haven't had that. Like, it's that lack of opponents, and like truly having wrestling old guys is really helpful. It really is. I don't know, like, why is Zack Sabre Jr. wrestling Yuji Nagata, but Yota Tsuji can't?
Yeah. You made a better point than I could ever make listing all of Yuma Anzai's opponents, because that is the benefit of All Japan system, where it's a smaller roster, it's tight, but they had such a strong hierarchy. But at the same time, Yuma Anzai basically got to fight everyone. Everyone who came through has been through those doors in like the last year has been an opponent of his. Essentially, he's been allowed to fight Kento so regularly, and of course Yuma, and just like that whole roster of people. And now he's getting another match against Nakajima now. I think that's Champions Carnival. Yes. So it's like it's the exact opposite of what we were describing in New Japan earlier, of how this young talent he hasn't been thrown to the wolves. Obviously, he's been in lots of tag matches with these people, as well as in singles matches, probably mainly tags, but it's like he's proven that he can do it, and he's been forced to swim, essentially. And super exciting. But like you said, he's obviously got other things to work on. Presentation, probably not his fault, to be honest. But
you want to know what's crazy?
We'll get there.
We're talking about Yuma Anzai, but Yuma Ayagi is only 28. He's younger than most of these young guys. Then he's younger than Yota Tsuji and Yuya Uemura.
That sounds
insane. And Yuma Ayagi is already like I would say maybe like the second top guy right now in under Kento.
I think he is. When Nakajima isn't there anymore, he's the second guy. Yeah,
easily the number 2 in the promotion right now. He's 28. His presentation is perfect. Like, and like it goes back to like All Japan. I truly believe that if All Japan stays on where they are right now, and if New Japan stays where they are right now, we are going to see a clear shift within the next 2 years. I used to say 3 or 4, but no, I think it's going to be much quicker than that, just because like, you have your tag team, the Saito brothers are freaking awesome. And not even just them. You have your top 2 stars actually make one of those brilliant tag teams in the world. Kento and Yuma. You have your junior heavyweight division clearly has these stars. Like, your stars, you have Dan Tamura right now, but you have Rising Hayato and you have Atsuki Aragi.
Yeah, I love Atsuki. I think Atsuki's like really, really coming out. I remember watching him like early last year, and then he might have got injured or went away for a bit, maybe went to a different promotion for a bit, and then like came back, and I was like, wow, he's like really good. He did some tags with Yuma Ayagi, and it was like, this guy's money, this kid. And he's young. He's like 22, 23.
My tag team match of the year actually was Atsuki and Rising Hayato versus Kento and Yuma Ayagi.
Oh, yeah.
Because the juniors are wrestling the heavyweights. They're looking great. Like, it's constant, like, they are wrestling top guys on a regular basis, and I think that they're just so far ahead. And also, I think that All Japan is sending their guys out. You had Rei Saito wrestling in the King of DDT tournament. They sent off, Yuma Anzai to the N1. And I think that New Japan has a lot of pride. So they don't send their young guys off to other people's tournaments. Like it's just like, you come to us. Y'all want to be in the G1. But listen, and I don't know if it's been set up. It probably hasn't, but if it hasn't, it should. So at least one of those guys should be in Champion Carnival.
Oh, yeah.
And they could immensely.
Yeah, I guess the problem is I assume there's going to be like an overlap between the New Japan Cup and Champion Carnival. And we'll get to the New Japan Cup in a bit and what that looks like. But yeah, no, you're right. It would be nice to see New Japan talent making those sort of trips to other promotions, tournaments, even just for one-offs. And looking at it, New Japan could do with some talent, especially in the junior division and especially in the tag division. And Japan is full of sort of junior heavyweight and tag talent at the minute. And if New Japan aren't going to make any permanent acquisitions, you'd at least like them to start to bring some people in on sort of short-term basis. You'd be looking towards the other Japanese promotions, but they've got a pretty strong sort of CMLL thing going on at the minute.
Absolutely.
And CMLL, that's full of that. That's just like junior heavyweights galore, right? So there are solutions here to New Japan's problems. It's whether they decide to take it or not is a different question, I think.
And they're supposed to have like this big group show with the 9 organizations that are partnered. I think what is it, May? So I will say, like, I'm excited, and I've said this on this show, but I think that Kento Miyahara should be the face of Puro from here on out. Now that Okada has moved off to going to the US, I think that Kento should be the guy. Like
you would think that New Japan would come knocking for Kento to sign him after Okada left.
He's never going to leave. So
yeah, it's you would think that they would at least try because he fits that role, right? He fits that face that everyone loves, and he's super charismatic, and he puts on probably the best singles matches in Japan at the minute. So
absolutely. And also, I think that so many people were convinced. They're like, well, New Japan is going to sign Kaito. Like, of course they're trying, etc. And we've never heard anything else on it. Like, I think a lot of times we give people too much credit sometimes because, Kaito would have been a great fit there. But also at the same time, it was just like, if you won't push your young guys, what makes you think that they're going to push somebody else's? So I don't know. I think it's going to be super interesting. I really hope that Hayato or Atsuki could be in Best of the Super Junior this year. Like that's a hope of mine. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I feel like even going to Noah, Oiwa is doing great in Noah. Fantastic. And I will say, I think that the Yoda Yuya match brought up a really interesting discussion on Twitter about the excursion system and like, is it working, or what is valuable and what's not. And I don't know. I do think that maybe some things need to be reworked because Oiwa went on excursion to Noah. He's doing great. And by the time he comes back to New Japan, I think he's going to be awesome. I think he's going to really go past his ceiling of what people thought he was going to be. He's doing awesome in Noah. Fujita didn't go on excursion at all. He went on a world tour. He joined TMDK.
Yeah, he's at the TMDK University, right?
Literally, and he's 21 years old, and he's running circles around people, years older than him. Young Blood is on excursion right now as a tag team. They went on.
They're good. I saw them at Rev Pro show like 2 weeks ago, and they've got it. I mean, the tag division could do with them right now.
Right now. And the thing is, so I saw their last match before they went on excursion. I was at New Year's Dash, and I was like, holy shit, like, they're good. Like, right now, like, do they have to leave? Like, where are they going? Like, do they have to leave? Like, you sure you really do?
Have they signed already? Like, can we get refunds on those plane tickets?
Exactly. Like, you really need tag teams right now. Like, you sure you want to let them go? Like, right now? Like, I don't know. Like, just because, Suji went to Rev Pro. I don't think it helped him at all. He flat out said it didn't help him at all. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
I saw Yota Tsuji in Rev Pro. That was my first Rev Pro show. I went to Live in London 71 last year when I was in London for spring break. And he was still in his black tights. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, he has so much charisma, but it's not like he picked up anything in the UK. He flat out said everything he learned, he ended up learning in Mexico. You know, Shota, I guess it was helpful because, you know, he was around Will Ospreay, Ren Narita. I don't know what you learned from Shibata. I don't know. And Yuya, they need to never send people to TNA ever again. Like I will say, I think that is a firm decision. Never again. No. The answer is no. The answer is no. So I don't know.
It's interesting because you'd think you could send a young line to TNA and they'd actually have some kind of prominent position, or at least they'd get used a lot and have sort of lots of opportunities that they might not at a Rev Pro, for example. It's kind of weird that it didn't work for Yuya, but then you look at the kind of history of the talent they've sent to TNA and how it's not really worked out most of the time. So there's something about that kind of combination that doesn't seem to work.
They had Yuya. Yuya was essentially making music videos with Joe Hendry. So there's that. And the thing that really worries me, that I've been thinking about a lot, and it's ever since like anybody listens to the interview that I did with Hikuleo, he talks about like not having a lot of big guys to wrestle. And that's something that he's been wanting to do more of wrestle guys, you know, closer to his size. And I think about Bolton Oleg, who is just about, it's almost time for him to probably go on excursion. I think he's just about ready, because I remember his first match as a young lion was the dark match on Wrestle Kingdom in 2023. And so he's just about ready to go on excursion. And it's just like, don't send him to TNA. I don't think that he should go to Rev Pro. Honestly, if you want him to learn something, I think he should either stay in Japan or you set up something for him to go to AEW.
Welcome to All Japan. Welcome.
Yes!
Please come in. He can have a
wrestle
while
Sawama.
He's there. Sawama, he should wrestle Fuminari Abe, get him in, you know. Get people who are going to smack him, and he can really like throw them around.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
Have him join Voodoo Murders or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Who else? You've got like a few sort of returning talents, and a few. I mean, like someone like Oscar Lube. I'm not how you say his name, but one half of Youngblood. He's tall. He's huge. So he's perfect. So there are. I
wanted Nakashima specifically. I wanted him to go to Noah because I felt like he's a bigger guy and he needs to learn how to use his size. And I think like you have to like be able to look at people and see like, okay, they need to be able to learn from somebody who's like them. Like, big wrestlers need to learn from big wrestlers. And I think that he could have really benefited from wrestling guys and working with guys like Masakita Miya and Manabu Soya over in Noah. And so but I do think like, I'm big on the tag team bit with him and like, Youngblood. I think like they're fantastic. And so I'm not too upset over it, but Bolton Oleg, I will say I'm really worried about, because you look at Yoda and Yuya and you're just like, what the fuck were they doing? And they were on excursion for a while.
They had long, like, pandemic era excursions, right?
They had long excursions. And
and not too much to show for it yet. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom like that. They're promising young talents. It's just not currently working out the way you'd expect, especially after, they're not. Yeah, like you said.
I think Forbidden Door will help them. I think Forbidden Door is going to help them. Just being exposed to like other styles and like other guys. Like I do think like for better or for worse, it's going to help them. They're either going to come back and be like, oh yeah, I just rocked that, or oh my gosh, that was the worst performance of my life and I need to do better. Like I think like it's going to be, and I think that Forbidden Door then going into G1, I think like it's going to have to work.
Yeah, I mean the G1 is like make or break this year, because after last year it was, yeah, you didn't really achieve much with it, and then you also, there was so many people in it, and now this year you've got this thing of like, oh, we'd quite like to get some younger talent in, but then does that mean you still have to keep that really sort of huge bracket they did last year, which just didn't feel right at all?
I'm gonna be
Yeah,
honest. If they're gonna keep that big bracket like they did, I have a list. It should be tons of All Japan talent in there. I will say, but also at the same time, I'm kind of scared of that because, you know, a lot of times the visitors end up embarrassing the guys who are there, and it's just like, if Kento Miyahara is in your tournament, he's stealing the show.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah,
He's stealing the show.
Yeah, it's dangerous letting someone like Kento into your tournament, because like that crowd's gonna, even if they don't know him, it's gonna take half a match. It's gonna take his entrance, and he's gonna have
Literally,
that
just the
crowd.
entrance.
He's gonna have that crowd. So
that Korakuen show is going to be so crazy. So it's just going to be nuts. And I think also, like, you know, I think guys like Yuma Oyagi could really benefit from it, or you know, and I think about in the past, you know, they've taken different people. Like I remember, you know, in the past they took Marufuji and they took young Nakajima at the same time into the G1. And so, and I will say, like Noah, I don't really see anybody that they have to offer right now except for Kaito again, and you don't have Okada. So really, what is the incentive there? You know, I think All Japan really has all the goods right now. You know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, if you're looking to get in, sort of collaborate with another Japanese promotion, I think All Japan are certainly the most bountiful in terms of talent you could instantly slot into a tournament or have a little one-off fuse with. I mean, I assume they do. No, they do have those kind of cross-promotional events throughout the year, which will be interesting. I thought last year there were too many. You know, there were lots of like huge multi-man matches when they did those kind of. I can't remember what they call those events, but when it's New Japan, Noah. Sorry.
All together again.
Yeah, all together again. Those events. So, you know, I would like to see more. I just want to see singles matches. You know, that's like
you know what? The thing is, if they did all together again this year, it's changed so much. All of the rosters have changed so much. Like I look back of just, you know, last year it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was Nakajima. It was Nakajima and Shiozaki versus what's the guy's name? Hakuto Amori, and who's his tag team partner? I forgot.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
And like Nakajima's no longer with Noah anymore, so there's that. Okada's no longer there. Like it's like the rosters have changed so much. I think like they don't have a choice but to do singles matches this year, just because.
Yeah, because they just don't have
enough people. Like it's just like the distribution of everybody is just like so completely different now. So that's going to be super interesting. And then the last match on the Sapporo card, we had Naito versus Sonata.
Again, yeah.
Again, you know,
I know from what you said earlier, that you have an opinion on this, about, especially when it comes to Naito. But I'm gonna be honest, I kind of enjoyed this match for the most part. I actually quite enjoyed the slower pace they had. And I also liked how it sort of ramped up and got really messy towards the end. But also it wasn't great, but I did enjoy it simultaneously.
I don't know. Like I think I was just so. I think also what contributed to my mood is that I felt so defeated after that hair versus hair match. Like it really fucked with me. Like I was just like, I think because like I put so much stock into it and feeling disappointed, I was like, oh. And so, you know, Naito was just, and Sonata, I was just like, what else? What more do you want from me? And I just, it was, when that Destino got botched for the third time, I couldn't do it.
Funny. It's so funny. I wrote notes for it, and I read back my notes, and it was like each time Naito did a Destino, it would come out a different way. ended up with some cool variations, but I don't think any of them were intentional.
I
It was
literally.
every time he went for it, it was like, well, that's different. He's landed on his knees that time. He just flopped.
My eyes started twitching, and it started to twitch just thinking about it, because I have never seen the Destino done that many different ways unpurposefully. And
It kind of ruled, to be honest. Like, I was enjoying
the
it.
outcome, I was just so done. I was just so done. Obviously, Naito won here. I feel like the match, like it was just all like, I think Sonata's like partially injured too, and it's just like, dude, what are we doing? I'm just like, what are we doing? And I hate to say it, like I was in full pessimist mode, and right at that point, it's like what 7 a.m. over here. I've been up for 4 hours in like in the middle of the night, and it's just like I'm like, we're so cooked. We're just so cooked. The world title scene is cooked, and then Naito wins, it's all over. And then the roll call couldn't even make me smile. Like, and the roll call always makes me smile.
Mm-hmm.
The roll call couldn't even make me smile. Then, like, I didn't budge a smile again until the Okada part. I didn't budge a smile again. And then I will say he got me. He got me.
Yeah.
Because Naito was perfect.
No, it was a super nice little sort of cap on it to get Okada involved at the end, and have Naito being that kind of, sort of villainous kind of, but he's just playing around really, and super nice send off for Okada, I think. Especially after the match, probably left a bit of a bitter taste in most people's mouths, to be honest. Super nice to see them have that last little interaction, even if it wasn't a match between them.
I will say, I forgot to say this, but Okada's face after that Tsuji Uemura's match was crazy. Like, oh, it was like, it's just the way that he just stares at people while they're yelling at him, and he just stares at them, and it's just so masterful. Like, he did the Great Okan, he did the Yota Tsuji, and it's just like, it just proves that like presence is really one of those things you can't buy, because like I will say, like, Yota Tsuji has really dazzled all of us since he really came back from excursion, and he looks so small compared to Okada. Just yelling like, I'm disappointed in you, and this is your fault, etc. And Okada's just staring at him with this blank expression, like, okay.
Yeah, fine. Whatever. He was like clear. So he wasn't even hiding, just wasn't impressed with the match at all.
Wasn't impressed at all. And then then fast forward like 30 minutes later, Naito, he's just cheesing like, gotcha. Yeah. I don't know. It was New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't know what's next for the world title picture. But
that's the worrying thing, I think.
But whatever's next, we're gonna find out really soon, and we're gonna find out here. We have the New Japan Cup is starting really soon. Actually, the first night kicks off on the 6th. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 28 participants this year. And there's a few surprise guests. One being Jack Perry, who is going to make his official New Japan debut on the 6th. And so when you first saw the New Japan Cup, what were your initial thoughts?
My eyes went, well, firstly, I looked at who had got a bye in the first round. Don't know why, just to see like who they tends to be who they kind of protecting a little bit more. And as you can see, like Zach and Evil, Sonata all got byes in the first round. But instantly the first matchup that my eyes went to were, I saw Sonata, I saw Jack Perry. I was like, well, was that a quarterfinal matchup? I suppose it will be.
Yep.
That's the thing that jumped out to me instantly. That's kind of, you can see the path for their rematch, which I'm actually really excited. I'm actually really excited to see Jack Perry and Shota at the show on the 6th. I think that's, I quite like the idea of Jack Perry having something to prove, and also not having to have that weight that was on him towards the end of his last AEW run, of being forced essentially to play this heel character and talk a lot, which absolutely not his strengths at all. So yeah, I'm really excited to see him against Shota, and then that rematch against Sonata has something. Yeah, those are the two things that jumped out to me straight away. That surprisingly, the Ishii Chase Owens match didn't. Yeah, there's a few interesting inclusions in this tournament, but it just shows you what that New Japan roster looks like at the minute. You look at all those names on there, and you do start to think like that's it right there. That's the roster.
Yep. So my initial thoughts wrote down the Shota Jack Perry round 1 matchup is very exciting. And, I am assuming that whoever wins here will lose in Chicago at Windy City Riot, because I think that they'll definitely have a rematch there. Yep. I predict that there will be a Shota versus Sonata top left quarterfinal. But, I think I'm changing my mind here. I think Jack Perry might win this first one. But I'm also kind of confused, because I will say, like, if Jack Perry wins in Chicago, that's going to be the funniest night ever. Oh my gosh, that's going to be the funniest night ever on the internet and in the building. So
that's a good point.
But I do think that the winner of this match will go to the quarterfinal and face Sonata. I think that David Finlay is going to definitely advance from that bottom left quarter. I think that the top left quarter is the hardest to call. Shingo, Yuya, and Gabe Kidd have a shot here. I think that Hal Newman and Gabe Kidd is going to be a great matchup. And also, now that I'm re-looking at this, I think that Hikuleo versus Bolton Oleg is going to be a great match. I think that finally, they're very well matched size-wise. And so I think the Hikuleo versus Bolton Oleg is going to be a really great match. And I think that I'm super excited for it. I'm not sure with Shingo and Yuya. I know this is probably going to be Yuya's debut with the new look after getting cut off. But I'm not going to lie. I want Shingo to win.
I mean, I think if you're looking to put over this new Yuya kind of persona, whatever it ends up being, I mean, a pretty good way to start that is to have him beat Shingo. But we'll see about that, I think. And it's the same issue with Shota, where it's like Shota's just lost to Evil. Like, then we have him, Jack Perry beat him. Maybe it's kind of looking like that will happen. And in that top right section you were just talking about, I love the idea of Gabe Kidd Shingo. Absolutely love that. So that's a potential. I kind of think Evil kind of has to progress pretty far. So do you end up with a Evil Gabe Kidd or Evil Shingo kind of thing? I don't know.
I believe that Evil is 100% going to go to the quarterfinals here. I think that one of these guys, either Shingo, Yuya, or Gabe, will be Evil's opponent. I also think that even though I want Shingo to win that first matchup, I do think that a Gabe Kidd Yuya match is interesting. I think that Gabe Kidd, he gets especially nasty when he's around some of the Japanese young guys.
He hates that.
He has to prove himself. And I think Yuya's one of the only ones he hasn't gotten to get his hands on yet. And so I think he's going to get really, really nasty. Really, really nasty about it. So I think that Finlay is going to definitely go to the final. He might win it all, actually, which,
Yep.
I hope Shingo wins, because I really hope Shingo wins. It might be unlikely, but if Yoda, Tsuji, or Shingo wins, but I think we need some conflict right now in LIJ. We need something. We need a catalyst for some conflict, because right now, most of the wrestlers who are worth a damn are in LIJ right now, who could possibly be in the title picture. So we need some conflict. We need something to be stirred up, some type of drama to set something up. I just feel like it's necessary. I feel like I know, because 9 times out of 10, whoever wins will lose. That's why I don't want Zack Sabre Jr. to win, because if he wins a third New Japan Cup just to not win the world title, I will. Oh my God.
Yeah, that is the. I've seen a lot of support online for Zach to win this, and I think I'm in the same boat as you, where if he's not going to win the if he's not going to win the world title, then don't bother. I don't think.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can see why people are getting behind Zach, but I'm kind of a bit more tentative, I think, and yeah, I think that's a little bit scary if you let him win and don't give him the world title here.
I'd rather get behind Zach for the G1 than the European Cup. Like, you know,
I
I
agree.
feel like one of the younger guys has to win one of them, either New Japan Cup or G1. And so, like, hey, like, if not Yuya, but Yoda or Shota wins here, I'm not against it. Or honestly, I don't think that the young guys have to win here. I think they just need to be set up as they need to feel like real contenders because they don't right now. Like they don't feel like real contenders. And like I'm fine if this year is the year that you finally give guys like Zack Sabre Jr. and Shingo the ball. Because like, you know, they're still in great physical condition. Like they can still take it, they can still handle it. I'm fine with that. Like, you know, and you just build these guys because honestly, I know a lot of people are just like, yes, you need to go ahead and have them pick up some wins. But no, these guys need to pick up some losses. They couldn't wrestle these top guys at all. At all. And they can't just know they're not believable. It's not believable for Yuya Uemura to beat Shingo Takagi in their first ever match. No.
Yeah. He doesn't have to beat him, he just has to wrestle him. This is like the thing.
And
you just have to put them in these positions.
You have to have engaging matches first. Then we can talk about actually winning them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think generally that's my way of thinking as well. The only thing with the Yuya thing is if he goes through a reset, a personality reset, a whole rebrand, it's pretty tough. I mean, you'd have to make that Shingo match interesting and pretty competitive to not kind of kill Yuya's momentum straight out the gates here. But I think generally you're spot on. You just need to have them wrestle against these top stars and have them just prove themselves a little bit. Because I think if Yuya comes up against Gabe Kidd in this current state, Gabe's going to eat him alive out there.
Literally.
Yeah. So I'd be for that. I'm behind Gabe Kidd. Love him. Think he's an outstanding talent. Like I'm so high on Gabe Kidd at the minute. So yeah, I'd love to see him.
Super sad that Hanare is not cleared right now because I hate that he's not a part of this New Japan Cup, and so hopefully he's back on road, you know, by G1. But yeah, I wish he was a part of this. However, I do think some interesting matchups from this first round to keep an eye on. I think that as much as I hate House of Torture, Toru Yano versus Yujiro Takahashi, I think it might actually be a hoot. I think it could be a hoot.
Okay.
I think it could be a hoot. And I also think that El Phantasmo and Mikey Nichols is going to be a great match.
We're going to fall out because I don't like El Phantasmo that much. I watched it. So, yeah. Something doesn't click. I love how he connects with the audience. And then the match starts and I'm like, oh, okay. Which is like blasphemy because everyone I know loves him.
Oh my God.
It's like the one guy who I'm like, I get why people love him.
The G1 matches didn't move you?
No, he just doesn't. He doesn't do it for me. He's like the one guy where I'm like, okay, but I see why people love him. I do get it. I get it. But yeah, I'm sure that'll be good. I mean, Mikey Nichols is great.
You know, it's crazy. Every guest I ever have on this show will agree on literally just about everything except for one person. It's always one. It's always one. Now, El Phantasmo is a new one. I will say. I
don't often meet people who share that opinion, but you know, it's something about it. It just doesn't do it for me at all. But I totally get why he's so popular. and I get why he's over in like every country he goes to. He's got that like mass appeal. But yeah, it doesn't do it for me, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Well, and I also think that could be interesting. Obviously, Zack Sabre Jr. has a bye, but if when Narita loses first round, Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi,
yeah,
a very interesting match. Very interesting. It would be a very interesting match with their history, and so, and I think that also Gabe Kidd is going to try to kill Callum Newman. So there's that. That's a given. Is anything else particularly interesting? I don't think so, honestly.
No, not for the first rounds. The Tangaloa Great Khan match is an insane. Like, we could just replace them, I think.
Tangaloa and Great Khan, that's going to be a snore. I might skip it.
Yeah, but I think those. Yeah, I think we've covered the first round matches to look out for, I think.
Okay, so final predictions. Okay, what do you think what is your final and who is your winner?
Oh, let's have one last look here because I'm going to forget someone really obvious. I think the final, I've got a feeling David Finlay has to be in the final.
Yeah, I agree.
And it can't be Finlay Evil, so that's just, we can't do that.
I will shoot myself.
I think it would be, I'd be tempted to do Finlay Zack in the final.
Finlay Zack? Oh, okay.
And then, because I kind of think Finlay's winning. Yeah. I'm not sure about the right side of the bracket. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, the left is much more straightforward, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that's my, like, I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure, but I think Finlay's winning it for some reason. I'm not sure if that's insane or not, but that's my gut feeling going into it. But I think there are going to be, throughout the tournament, there are some pretty nice matchups, which is what I'm really watching for anyway. Yeah.
It's not about the journey. It's about it's not about the destination, but the journey.
Yeah, exactly. What about you?
I agree on the Finlay part, on that Finlay is going to make it to the final. Like I said, I am pushing for an LIJ story. My heart wants Shingo. My head says Tsuji. So I am going to go Tsuji versus Finlay. Tsuji wins.
Nice.
But is that realistic? I don't know, because that means that David Finlay will have finished being the runner-up 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I do agree that I think LIJ does need a little bit of a shake-up because you have so many of the talents who are like, they kind of need to break out and also free them up so they can actually wrestle each other.
Yes, we need some conflict.
Yeah, so yeah, I could see, especially after beating Yuya, you'd expect Tsuji to have a decent push going forward for a few months at least. So we'll see.
And you know, hey, wild card pick. I don't think that they're going to go with him. But Gabe Kidd versus David Finlay. I think that's, that's money on the table.
Yeah. I mean, it's something which obviously has built-in story, and it's got. It's interesting if you do it now, because I assume afterwards the repercussions of this would probably be some kind of Bullet Club leadership change. So it depends whether you want to pull the trigger on that now or later. I don't trust them to pull the trigger on it at all, to be honest.
But there's been a tease towards it. Like, was that a month ago or like 2 months ago? Finlay and like Bullet Club, they were doing backstage comments, and like, I guess Gabe was in the back talking, and he was like, "Shut the fuck up, Gabe," and like everybody started looking around. So like, there's definitely
I think Gabe walked out as well. I'm not sure if it was that comments or another comments, but he walked out of one of them. So
exactly, and then also like with with Finley losing the championship within a month, like bring gold or bring bodies, and like, there's potential there. I think I'm just excited. I think like we said, the right side is very unpredictable, but I do think there's some great matchups that we're going to see. So super exciting stuff happening, So like I said, we were going to end on a high note here with the New Japan Cup. There's lots to be excited about, and I know this felt a lot like a venting session about a lot of what's happening in Japan, but it's all out of love because we want it all to be better. But
exactly.
we're gonna see. So obviously, 52nd anniversary show is coming up soon. Have no idea how that's gonna go. And then we have the New Japan Cup is coming up. And so super exciting. Yeah, the 52nd anniversary show is on the 6th of March. And we'll kick off the New Japan Cup. So super exciting stuff. Obviously, it will be main evented by Naito versus Sho.
So enjoy that.
Fun with that. That match that we've all been clamoring for.
Yes. We'll be watching.
Tons of stuff also happening throughout the rest of the wrestling world. Obviously, earlier today, it was, yesterday, for those of you who are listening to this now, but for us today, it was announced in the world of Stardom that this upcoming card is actually really great.
It's crazy.
Natsupo's return match. She'll be teaming up with Saori and going up against Suri and Big Hash. Because what? And also it was announced that Julia will be defending the New Japan's Strong Women's Championship versus Stephanie Becerra in Japan. I think it's going to be in Korakuen, if I'm not mistaken. I think that show's in Korakuen.
Wow.
Super exciting stuff happening in the world of Stardom. They're bringing in talent from Diana. They're bringing in talent from Sendai Girls. I don't know. I was kind of really apprehensive about this new Stardom management, but you got me. You got me on the TJPW side for you, the people who watch that. I even don't typically watch TJPW, but the upcoming card looks great. Like Miya Yamashita versus Miyu Watanabe, Maki Ito versus Minoru Suzuki. I'm actually super excited. I literally can't contain myself. I'm so excited for that. AEW Big Business is coming up. By the time you listen to this, I will be on my way to Greensboro for Revolution. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that I'm missing. It was announced Katsuhiko Nakajima will be defending against Fuminori Abe. What else is happening? Also, Katsuhiko Nakajima has a match coming up for the Triple Crown with Yuma Anzai, which is super, super exciting. Trying to think of, is there anything else that I'm missing?
I guess we got Windy City Riot.
Start
of April, I think.
Yes, it's April, and it was announced that Mina Shirakawa, Azumi, and Stephanie Becerra will all be on that card. So it's going, as of right now, that card has New Japan, CMLL, AEW, and Stardom involvement. I think there's going to be TNA involvement as well. So, so massive super show. And with the teasers that we've been getting lately, I'm almost positive that Mercedes Moné is going to be there. With the way that she's been talking lately, and the way she's talking lately, right now she's in Japan, obviously for the Anime Awards, but she's been hanging out with Mina and all these people. So I think we're going to see the CEO super soon in New Japan as well as AEW. So tons of exciting stuff happening in the wrestling world in the month of March. I recommend you hang on to your hats, people, because this is about to get really, really, really crazy. But thank you so much, Ben, for joining me. Is there anything that you'd like to plug or tell people before we head out?
No, not really. Thank you very much for having me on. And my at's below, at Graps on Taps. Give me a follow, and I'll be posting whenever I write something. But mainly, I'll just be tweeting about the stuff I'm watching and getting involved with the community. So, follow me there if you want to.
Awesome. And you can find me at Lyric Wrestling on Twitter and Instagram, and you can subscribe on YouTube at Lyric Swinton. Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned. I have committed myself. I said I'm going to get up every single night of the New Japan Cup. Am I lying? Probably, but I'm making the goal that I am going to do live coverage of the New Japan Cup. So stay tuned for information on that. And I'm going to try to cover Champion Carnival too. So and hopefully Ben will be back. We'll do a preview show once the brackets are released. So
yeah, we have to. Super excited about Champion
Super
Carnival.
excited. Champion Carnival.
Yeah,
it's gonna be great. But thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to this New Beginning of Sapporo review / New Japan Cup preview. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.